In the humanist spirit of free inquiry, and in the tradition of both the IHEU and the AHA, of welcoming exciting and controversial speakers to stimulate mind and heart, our keynote speaker this morning is journalist and literary critic Christopher Hitchens. In case you don't know it already, since 1992 he has been a columnist and contributing editor at Vanity Fair magazine, and at different times a columnist and correspondent for the London periodicals The Spectator, The New Statesman, and the Times Literary Supplement, as well as such U.S. periodicals as The Nation and Free Inquiry. He is the author of numerous books, including God is Not Great, How Religion Poisons Everything. That's the U.S. title. You Brits got a watered-down version. Thomas Jefferson, author of America, Letters to a Young Contrarian, and The Missionary Position, Mother Teresa in Theory and Practice. He's also the editor of The Portable Atheist, Essential Readings for the Non-Believer. He will be autographing books in the foyer during the break at 10:15. So let's give a warm welcome to Christopher Hitchens.
Well, thank you, sir, for that suspiciously terse introduction. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, comrades, friends, for joining me in skipping the early Mass. I, having skipped Mass, was then told that I was only going to be required to talk for about 10-15 minutes. How ridiculous. I have no intention of being brief. Let me see, look, because of the subtitle, the American edition of my book, I've had a few sort of sardonic reviews and questions. People say, you mean poisons everything? Like chess, like aerobic dancing, tantric sex, all poison? I say, well, if you think about it properly, the answer, I would say, was yes. Why is this? Was religion and faith attack us in our very deepest integrity? Really at the central core of our character as humans. Religion tells us that we wouldn't know a right action, wouldn't be able to discern a right action, or even a right thought, without a supernatural permission. And in many ways, without the fear of divine punishment or a divine reward. It robs us, in other words, of our entire moral autonomy. It seems to me to take the axe more or less to the root. I have two proposed answers I've made some use of in debate to this point, to the idea that we can't know right from wrong without the supernatural, without faith, without religion. It takes a form of a double-barreled challenge. You have to first name a moral action taken, or a moral statement made, ethical statement made, by a believer that could not be made by an unbeliever. I've now challenged the faithful on this in print, on the air, on YouTube, on radio, on TV, and in numerous debates with religious officials of almost every faith, and I haven't yet had an answer to that question because I don't believe there can possibly be one. But if you ask the corollary question, it's quite impressive. Ask people to think of a wicked action taken, or a wicked or evil statement made purely because of faith, and everyone immediately thinks of an example right away. You've already, all of you, thought of one. And it's very interesting to see the expression change in religious audiences when you ask that too. They suddenly all go, oh yeah, I can think of that. What a shame they can do that and they can't think about the other. The second reason I think that religion is a deep and radical and dangerous toxin is this. To some real questions, to some serious questions, he proposes what I like to call a totalitarian solution. The idea of a God is the idea of an unalterable religious dictatorship, something that watches you while you sleep, that takes the form of an unending round-the-clock, dawn-to-dusk surveillance that doesn't even stop when you die. And in fact, that's when the fun really begins. And which can convict you of thought crime. It is in the literal Orwellian sense, a totalitarian system. You may find that you are guilty because of something you didn't know you were going to think or say, but now, no, you've been caught out. I've been to all the countries of the axis of evil in my time, including North Korea, which is the most thoroughgoingly totalitarian system that I think has ever been attempted. The North Korean state was founded by Kim Il-sung, I think the year after the publication of 1984. And you have to ask yourself whether or not someone gave Kim Il-sung a Korean edition of 1984 and say, hey, do you think we could make this work? And, I don't know, but I'm willing to give it the old college try. That's how it looks. Journalists like myself are very keen to avoid cliché. I went to Prague once under the old days of communism, and I remember thinking to myself, whatever I write from here, I'm not going to mention Franz Kafka. Everybody does that. I'm going to be the first person to write from Prague and about the political atmosphere here and not mention Kafka at all. I went to a meeting of the opposition in one of Havel's friends' apartments. Someone must have given us away because the secret police came crashing through the door with dogs and torches and clubs and the rest of it and smashed us up against the wall and said, you're under arrest. And I considered saying, I demand to see the British ambassador, and I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. I thought, what's the charge? And they said, we don't have to tell you that. And I thought, fuck, no, I do have to mention that. That's the whole point about cliché, they make you do it. Well, I didn't want to mention 1984 when I went to North Korea, but you have to. Anyway, the thing about North Korea is this. Don't let anybody tell you different. It is the most religious state on the planet. Its leader, Kim Jong-il, the dear leader as he's now called, is only the head of the party and of the army. He's known as Mr. Chairman, not Mr. President. The president of North Korea is his father, Kim Il-sung, who's been dead for, I think, nearly 20 years. So it's a necrocracy. Or a mausolocracy, or a thanatocracy, or something of the kind. Anyway, you'll notice that it is a father-son symbiosis. In other words, it's only one short of a trinity. I used to wonder when I was a kid what heaven was like. Hell was easy to imagine, and they kept on telling you what that was like. But heaven, what's heaven like? Well, in heaven, you get to praise God from dawn till dusk, all the time, forever. I thought, it sounds like hell to me. Unlike hell, it was more difficult to imagine. I couldn't imagine constantly praising someone for having gone to all the trouble of inventing me, something that presumably came to naturally. But there it was. I tried to imagine it, I failed. Now I've seen it. That's what they do in North Korea. Praise and thanks for all the benizons that are showered on you by the Divine One all the time. They're running short on rations, and meanwhile, as you may have noticed, not even the rations come around regularly now, but you still have to keep on doing that. But at least you can die and get the hell out of North Korea.